We all want a journey in this life, and where this road takes us is all up to us today. Jesus, whom he loved, and many who needed his advice and teaching or spiritual growth, he was also not able to share the gospel with non-believers. And his evangelical ministry would increase intensely. So as good as death may have been an option, it wasn't without liabilities. He's still not done everything that God had planned for him to do today. That day, I should say. But when it was time, God said it was time. It's not over until God says it's over. That last bout is not over till God says it's done. It's not over till God says, "Welcome home, my child. You've been faithful in a few things, or depart me, you work of iniquity, I never knew you." But B is to remain. On the other hand, if Paul remains on earth, his ministry will continue, and many will be blessed. The benefits being obvious, and his vision of reaching the world for Christ would continue to keep the flames of evangelism going everywhere he went, including his writing ministry, which we read from today. There were still things that he had to write. There were still things that he needed to do. There were still messages that he needed to preach. There were still people that he needed to reach. It wasn't all just about his loved ones he was leaving behind. It was about all the ones that he's not touched yet. All the ones that God was sending them. Maybe he didn't know them from Adam, but later on he would know them because God was sending them to him. The downside of this is that he would remain absent from his heavenly home. His pain, whatever that was, would only increase. And after all that he had been through, there would be more suffering and more persecution. Who would want that? Paul needed some relief. We all want relief. But think of the gain. Think of the reward. The Bible says we're not saved unless we endure to the end. You can preach to millions. You can preach to thousands. You can preach to just 2 or 3. You can speak in tongues as of angels. You can shout. You can dance. You can get saved. You can do whatever you want to do. But if you're not ready when God comes back for you, I don't care how old you was when you got saved. I don't care how many times you spoke in tongues. I don't care how many times you danced. I don't care how many times you shouted. I don't care how many times you went to church. I don't care how many times you helped out the church. If you're not ready when God comes back for you, you want to split hell wide open. And number 2, there's making a choice. Now you might think that Paul was mature enough to make this decision. After all, he was strong in the Lord. But according to his own words, he admitted, "Yet what shall I choose, I cannot tell." He says in essence, "I don't know what to do." Both choices was logical, and neither would be wrong. Both had positive benefits, both had their downfalls. This was a real life and death dilemma for Paul, but he decided in the proper way. Hey, I'll let the Lord decide. That's what we need to do today. We need to make the Lord decide. We don't need to make any decisions till God makes those decisions. We don't need to make any life-changing, altering decisions until God decides. This is the whole part of today's sermon. That when we arrive at such dilemmas, and we will, dilemmas that we are unable to work out, we must also take them to the Lord. James in his epistle chapter 1 verse 5 says, "If any one of you lacks wisdom," and wisdom is nothing more than the ability to make right decisions. "If any of you lacks wisdom, let us ask of God, who gives us all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given unto him." And God is the best person to ask, as Isaiah chapter 55 verse 8 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither my ways your ways. Neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than yours, and my thoughts are higher than yours." God has a plan. We may not know it now, but God has a plan. You never know what you'll go through that will be a testimony to someone else along the way. And there's nothing impossible for God. And so to move on to Mark chapter 14, where we read the dilemma faced by Jesus himself in the Garden of Gethsemane. Well, his dilemma was to either avoid the forthcoming pain and shame, leaving humbleness with no humanity without no hope of salvation, and flee, or should he submit willingly to his accusers? With hindsight, it was obvious what was the right thing to do. But if we were in that position, and it was us that was about to be crucified, I don't think the solution will be that obvious. But it was a dilemma that made Jesus pray in Mark 14:32. Abba, Father, all things are possible to you. Take this cup from me. Nevertheless, I will, but what you will. On one hand, Jesus wanted to die for the sins of the world, but on the other hand, dreading the pain and suffering. Jesus wanted to run, but in the end, Jesus didn't make the decision himself. He said, not your will, but my will, but his will be done. Sometimes we want to run. Sometimes we want to run for the hills because we get scared, because we feel like we're backed up in a corner. But what are we really running from? Are we running because we're scared of what we're going on? Are we scared? Are we running because we're scared that God could actually make a change in that life? And then maybe God will use us for his glory, use us for his testimony, and you're afraid to do what God's called you to do. Nevertheless, you need to obey God. Not worry about nothing. But we need to have that testimony like David did that pleased the Lord. This is so important to remember because everybody at some times in their lives faces temptations or trials or the heartaches that threaten to overwhelm them. Yet in the midst of such difficult times, when even our closest friends, like Job, can do nothing to help, the Lord is there to help. Acts 30:32 says, and now, brethren, I commend you to God and to the word of his grace, and is able to build you up and to give you an inheritance among all which are sanctified. And that is in us, and God is looking after us. We who are his own. A favorite verse is found in 2 Corinthians 9:8, who goes on to say, and God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that he, having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. We all have trials. We all have tribulations. We've all had obstacles that we had to face. Whether it be sickness, pain, death, agony, heartaches, hurts in church, hurts in relationships, hurts in whatever. We have all had some obstacles. We've all had things we've had to overcome. But what you soon realize once you truly are able to come out of those circumstances is we're only as strong as the weakest moment. And what makes us weak only makes us stronger. And we may have some scars, we may have some battle wounds, but it's made us who we are today. We're a better testimony because of what we've been through. We're able to reach more than we ever could because of what we've been through. And greater is he that's in us than he